Get my recording started and to say welcome everybody. I know it's been a busy time for everybody, and we're in week 4. Starting week 4, it won't be long. We'll be at the halfway point. We're going to talk about some things in just a few minutes, Dr. Revis and I, about the work you've done, where you are, and where we need to go. I want to share this with you though. Dr. Revis and I both retired at the superintendent's level, and I've been out, Dr. Revis, I've been away from the superintendent's office. It'll be 10 years for me in the next few weeks, but I haven't stopped working. I stayed out 6 months, and then after those 6 months, I started doing interim work. They would call me to do interim work, so I filled several positions that way. And then I started working, in addition to working with Gardner Webb, I started working part-time. I got a call from, and some of you may be familiar with this, Communities in Schools, a nonprofit-based program where I got a call, and the person that was the executive director at that time wanted to know if I was interested in talking with them about managing some programs from a grant. Well, the rest is history. I started that about 8 years ago, and loved it, was able to get involved in started grant writing, and as a result, I'm now the executive director. I work full-time in that program now. Staying home was not what it all was cracked up to be, so I had to work. But anyway, I was saying, you wonder sometimes, and you as teachers, and whatever role you're in, you wonder sometimes, is what I'm doing make a difference? We all like to be validated. We all like to have affirmation that we're doing a good job, and even though we have to be to the point with you sometimes, we also like to let you know when you are doing good things. But that's the same thing for Dr. Revis and me. Well, as a result of that grant 8 years ago, I was able to start a program, several programs, but this one was at a particular middle school. And there was a young lady in there. Her name was Azuzina, but we called her Susie. She was a little Hispanic girl in 6th grade. And the after-school program was designed for somewhat at-risk population of students based on several different criteria. It could have been socioeconomics. There's just a lot of factors that tied into it. However, I never said no to any child that wanted to be in the program. Susie was very, very quiet. She was, you would have never known she was on the place. But one of my workers that I had working in that program made a strong connection with Susie, and it was a STEM-based program. So we introduced them to STEM in a way that they had never been introduced to STEM before. But 2 days ago, I received this text message from the person that was working with Susie at that time, and it's been probably about 7 years now. Susie is now a senior in the early college. She was 6 years old, senior in the early college, and will graduate with an associate's degree in May. But this is what Susie said, and this was quiet little Susie. She says, "Hello, Mrs. Register. Hope you are doing well. Just wanted to let you know I received admission news from UNC Chapel Hill in North Carolina State. They both accepted me, and I'm going for Chapel Hill. I want to thank you for being a motivation in my life since middle school. I appreciate you for coming to my middle school and bringing a spark of change. I found my love for STEM and will continue to pursue a career in STEM. I'm so excited to finish early college in May with my associate's degree as well. Hopefully we can meet before I leave Robeson County and hang out." The thing is, as a leader, you never, ever know the impact. Now, I didn't work with Susie directly, There were teachers that worked with Susie, but guess what I did? I was the leader. I was the administrator. I was the one that put the program there. Had I not taken the initiative to work through this grant and put programming there and to teach them about STEM and to promote STEM, guess what? I don't know that Susie would have been a success story. I don't know that Susie would have gone to early college, or Susie would have fallen in love with STEM and she would be going to Chapel Hill. I said all that to say this. It's not about me. I use that as an example. You can make a difference. You need to do in everything you do, even the work you're doing now. If you just pilfer around and you do second best, guess what? You'll pay for it down the road. Even if you get into administration, you'll struggle and you'll have problems. But if you persevere, you put your best into whatever you're doing, I don't care what it is. You got to sacrifice. There's things you're going to have to put aside and you're going to have to do. But remember, what you do can and will make a difference in the lives of children. You will find your Susies out there just like I have found my Susie. There's lots of them out there, and whatever we're doing, we have to put aside whatever it is. We have to remember who we're out there for and why we're doing what we're doing. Dr. Revis, that's all I'm going to say. I'll let you go ahead and welcome to class.
Well, I think that's a big amen on that. Well, just to follow up and say, education is about life changing. And so regardless of whether you're in the classroom or an assistant principal or a principal or even in the district office, it's all about providing opportunities and changing lives for our students. So don't ever forget that. And sometimes we get frustrated. And yes, when you become an administrator, it's very easy. It's very easy to have a lot of obstacles that get in your way. But even when I was in the superintendent's office, if I had a bad day, I just went to a school, walked in the classrooms, because that brought me back to what it's about. It's about those children. So I just say amen, Dr. Stedman.
And I'm going to tell you, you said that going to a school. I can remember those of you some of you work with special needs children and some of you are familiar with it. I would always, if I needed to get away and I needed to clear my mind and I needed to just to refocus, I would go to a special needs class. And that made me really, really refocus, what I was all about and what I needed to do and get me back on track. And especially my children with autism. Oh, that was one of my most special places to go. They loved you unconditionally and they would help you just forget about all of the world's problems. So if you ever need to get away and you need to refocus, find you a special needs class too, and especially in your schools, your autism classes, they will change your life. So just remember that. Those are some just little tidbits to get started with. Dr. Revis, if you would go ahead and let's get started talking about where we are with the work that has been submitted up to this point.
Okay, well, I had some really good task twos. Most of the candidates, Dr. Stedman, did not have time to meet with their administrator before they turned it in on Sunday evening, which we knew it was going to be you're going to be hard pressed to do that. So for the majority, it was just a matter of get that piece done. And I like to see that presentation mentioned either at the end of prompt 1 or prompt 2, but put it at the end and make sure that you talk about, that you met with your administrator to make the presentation, what date it was, and here are screenshots of my slideshow or a link to the presentation. But make sure the evaluator, that stands out to the evaluator when you turn that back in. Got a lot of good, again, peer reviews. You guys are getting good on those. And so thank you for that. And I think those are my comments on task 2. I think all of you now have seen the routine of the course. And I think you're getting that at this point.
And just remember, we're not going to back off. We have to. If it says it's due, it's due. And if you get a note from us that says whatever, I don't have time. We don't have time. But it's to the point. It's to get you focused and to let you know we need your work. So that's it. I would ask you to please, as busy as you are, and I'm not minimizing that. We understand that, but the work's still got to be done. It's got to be done in a timely manner. Don't forget to focus on what's there. We've provided you with lots and lots of stuff, and I'm not picking on anybody. I just want to. I had a group that got a little bit on edge the weekend. They got talking, and sometimes when you talk, you forget about the reality of what you have. And so I'm just going to use this as an example, so you'll know that we've tried to provide you with what you need. Several students, not just that group, but several were concerned about the PowerPoint. Remember, Dr. Revis and I told you, we said we know you probably will not have time, and we understand that. Submit all of your work except for the presentation, knowing that that's going to be as early as you can next week. We even told you to try to get that. And then remember, I said that is to put just a little disclaimer, and then just saying, I have my administrative presentation scheduled for, or whatever. And we said to basically to put it at the end of task 2, but like Dr. Revis said, it can go in either place. We don't care as long as we know that it's there. This is where it is. Just go back to, we put it in your helpful hints document right here. Once task 2 prompts 1 and 2 are complete, you are to schedule a meeting with your principal leadership team to present the findings. And this is where, now I know you will find in some of the stuff that's embedded in there, and these are state documents or whatever, we can't change that because that is some of the stuff. However, we're working with the reality of the pandemic and everything else. So we told you, if we say it, it's okay. If Dr. Revis and I say it, if it's in our document, if we said follow what's in your helpful hints document. You are not required to do a video, but it is highly recommended. However, you should have a picture of you presenting at a minimum. You should also have a PowerPoint and an agenda for the presentation. This will be included in the work you will submit for grading when you submit, for your final. Just remember, when you start panicking or you can't, go back and look at the documents. We've tried our best, to put it there so that you can be at ease and know, yes, this is what they said. And we know that it's a lot to remember, but just remember, that it's there. And somebody, if it's a Zoom team and you're talking, somebody say, stop, everybody say, look, stop. Let's go back and look and see what Dr. Revis and Dr. Stebbin has given us. And then just take the lead. And if somebody wants to say something, no, say, I said, stop. And you do take the lead and tell them, and I promise you, most of the time you'll find it. And I'm going to get off that soapbox, Dr. Revis.
And there's one question in the chat box. Should we provide any feedback that our administrator gives to us? Certainly. That just adds to it. If I had my preference, and I'll just tell my class, my preference is you talk about that presentation at the end of prompt 2.
That's what I like, yes.
And I think evaluators, I think it flows more logically for evaluators to be looking for it there as well.
Well, it makes sense because you're doing data presentation there anyway. So you've done all your other stuff, and then this is basically the conclusion of what you're doing there. Just a reminder, you're going to have to learn APA 7th edition. You've got to learn it. We told you capitalization is far different from what you're used to. Most words are not capitalized with APA 7th edition anymore. So what doesn't look right really is right when you don't capitalize it. So go back and look at that. I've been and Dr. Revis has too, I've been pretty good about highlighting and sending it back most of the things, but now that will eventually stop. You know, we've been pretty, you know, we are holding the apron strings right now, and we're giving you a lot of this, and we're not going to stop right now. But now remember, there will be gradual release. We have to make you more independent with what you're doing, more cognizant of what you need to do, knowing that, you know, we've still got you for several more weeks. But when you get to 603 in the summer, guess what? I'm going to use bad grammar. Ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen. They ain't gonna give it to you. So you better get it from Dr. Revis and I are like mom and daddy this semester. We're nurturing you, and we're trying to cuddle you, and we give you a lot of it. We have to be stern sometimes, but we do with our own children. But just know that by the end of the semester, we have to cut the umbilical cord. And you have to start walking and doing some things on your own. So just know we do what we do because we're supposed to in 601 to make you be able to flow smoothly throughout the rest of the program. But you will find us gradually, just like I said, like you do your own children. You gradual release. We're not going to let you drown. We might throw you in the water, but we're not going to let you drown. If we see you going under, we're going to pull you up and we're going to help you out.
Dr. Stedman.
Yes.
Hi, can I make a quick comment?
Sure can, Alicia.
I just wanted to, I take your feedback to heart, and I thank you for taking the time to share with us. But I also wanted to shout out my Zoom crew. My team is 100% phenomenal. I know everyone's doing a great job, but like exceptional work should be highlighted as well. Cindy, your papers are flawless. Like your tasks are amazing. I am learning so much from reading your work. And then Jonathan Jeffries, your feedback, I've never gotten feedback that is so clear, concise, and professional in my entire life. So thank you, Jonathan, for your feedback. And Cindy, thank you for your example to follow. So
and Alicia,
thank you. You guys have been amazing too.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Alicia, because that's the whole purpose of the peer reviews and the Zoom. And you're right. You're right on point with what you said. You know, and I could say it about many of you, but what you said about Jonathan, what you said about Cindy, you're on point. And I appreciate that, Alicia, because you're recognizing what Dr. Revis and I are already recognizing. That's the signs of a good leader. So just know that. Thank you for those comments. And many of you could say the same thing, I'm sure. But thank you for doing that, Alicia. Dr. Revis, let's talk about, let's go ahead, and I'm already off task. Let's talk about the AAPSL Task 1 and 2 Zoom that's due the end of next week, not this week. I'm going to quit sharing, and
I do not have it. I do not have it pulled up, Dr. Stedman.
Okay, let me do this.
If you have it,
no, you go ahead and talk for a minute. Go ahead and start
okay.
talking, and then let me. I'm losing stuff. Oh man.
Okay, so with your Zoom team meeting, the first thing that you need to do is decide who is going to be the Zoom master. Now, all of you are going to get this opportunity, and that's where you can really start demonstrating leadership. And that's where we'll see you demonstrate a lot of leadership. But if you are the Zoom master, then you're going to set up the Zoom link, send it out to everybody, and you're going to develop an agenda. You don't have to develop it alone. If you develop it ahead of time, you can shoot it out to your teammates to see if they want to make any revisions or additions or anything like that. But it's your job to facilitate that meeting of your peers. Now, some of you as instructional coaches or even as assistant principals, some of you are already very very accustomed to facilitating PLCs or team meetings with adults. Some are not. So that kind of gets you your toes in the water here a little bit. But you're responsible for doing an agenda and keeping everybody on target. You don't want to let somebody just dominate the conversation. So you have to think about strategies that you're going to use as a facilitator to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to share their ideas and to share their thoughts.
Dr. Revis, you see where this is. First of all, I want to see this and you continue. It's under week 4. This is the document she's going to talk about, Professional Dialogue Starters PowerPoint, and you've got it there, and I'm going to bring it up and let Dr. Revis continue.
And also you need to be aware of if there's somebody holding back and not sharing, you need to try to engage them and find ways to get them on board and get them pulled into the conversation. So what I have done here is just some ideas. You don't have to use these, but I think it's some ideas. This is your first Zoom meeting to help you start your dialogue, your professional dialogue. Now, remember, this is a professional PLC, and we want you coming to the meeting prepared. As Zoom mates, you need to come prepared, and you need to be ready to share what is going to be talked about during that meeting. And we want you to use professional language and etiquette during your Zoom meeting. That's not the time to get on there and bash Dr. Stedman and myself. I mean, there is a time probably that you can do that, but that's not the time, because we're going to be looking and listening to your Zoom meeting. So anyway, here's kind of a draft agenda, if you will, and some questions or some ideas. Of course, make sure you introduce yourselves. We're getting to know you, and I know our classes are small, but it's really important when you get on that Zoom meeting that you say, "Hi, I'm Kathy Revis, and I'm your Zoom leader for tonight," and let everybody introduce themselves, cameras on, so we know who's talking and can make that facial connection with you guys. So one of the first things you might want to talk about is describe your experience with leading that first PLC in task 1 and 2. And is this the model your school uses? If not, how did you introduce the model, the DeFore model? Share what went well, what you wish you would have done differently, what you've learned from leading your PLC, perhaps. Can you go to the next slide, Dr. Stedman?
Okay, yes, ma'am.
And that's more about, again, just some ideas. And then in the next slide is talking about your data dive that you did with task 2.
Did it go?
No, it didn't switch. There we go.
Okay, got you. Okay.
Again, share what went well during your data dive, what you learned about available data, and what you learned about when you disaggregated your data. Did you have to redirect your PLC discussion at any time? If so, talk about those redirection techniques. Because when you're facilitating meetings, there's some people who are bad to go on a tangent, and then how do you respectfully and professionally bring the conversation back? And then maybe how you move the team to consensus on deciding the most pressing need. And then lastly, just some things, if you have time, what has been your biggest challenge so far in the program? Share how you think you have grown in your leadership skills, and share anything else you wish to share. You can even start talking about task 3 that's coming up, or that you will actually be involved in by the time you get to this Zoom meeting. So those are just some ideas of what we're looking for in some of the dialogue. But I think the main thing is, as a Zoom leader, think about how you're going to get all your teammates engaged in a way that no one dominates and everyone has an opportunity to share. What did I leave out, Dr. Stedman?
That was good. let me,
They only have a 40-minute Zoom account. Is that correct?
that's right, but there's, some of them have Zoom accounts at their school, and if you want to go, honestly, you know, if you want to go longer than that, that's okay. Or you can, we've had them longer than that, Dr. Revis. So some of them have figured out how to do it longer. But the Zoom account that you've got, the free Zoom account is only up to 40 minutes. So just remember
Yeah.
that. And
Well,
you
can-
should
can I-
really be able to do it all in 40 minutes if you're organized and you stay on task.
That's what I was just gonna say. I'm just gonna be blunt. Guys, if you're well planned and you've thought about how you're going to share information, you can get it done in 40 minutes. I really think that's key. You've got to learn how to lead meetings and PLCs efficiently. So just be well prepared.
And just remember, the Zoom team leader is the one responsible for sending out the Zoom link to you, is responsible for uploading the video. Now, when you get through, the Zoom leader is going to send every one of you the link, just like Dr. Revis and I sends them out every Tuesday night and on Thursday so far. You will get the link to that. Your responsibility will be to place it for a grade. All of you will put it in the same place. However, we will look at your participation and what you do or you don't do to give you your grade on the assignment. Now, where do you go again? Remember, you go to the AAPSL completed, I'm looking for the AAPSL completed peer review right here. You go there, you scroll all the way down to the bottom, and look at there. And that's where you put, you do the thread and you put that's where you put your video. You don't have to do any narrative work at all for this one. All you do is submit your video, and we're going to grade you on what you say and what you do in that presentation. Okay.
And Jonathan has a question. And Jonathan, I hope I'm interpreting this correctly. All questions need to be addressed by all members. You don't have to do all those questions.
No.
Those are just some ideas. But I think you can see what we're trying to get at.
Right.
We're trying to get you to talk about the leadership, what leadership skills and things you have learned by doing tasks 1 and 2.
And Jonathan,
So
and
you
all
can
of
pick and
you,
choose.
a couple of students may respond to one thing, and then they may not respond necessarily to the next thing. You know, everybody, you won't have time for everybody to say something about everything, or you'll run out of time. And the leader should be responsible for moving things on in a timely manner. That's a part of leadership. One more thing while I'm here. When you submit your work, and I'm fussing a little bit because when you don't put it in the right place, Dr. Revis and I have to go in and we have to manually go through a process and remove it, take it out, tell you to go back and put it in the right place. Sometimes by the time I get through, I've 30 minutes of my day has been spent taking care of one little thing. So I'm asking you, please remember, you are working with the AAPSL right now. Do not go in Blackboard past this area right here. And you don't even need to go there. Right now, as far as you go is a AAPSL assignment Dropbox. I'm going to tell you like they do a Monopoly. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Do not go past the AAPSL assignment Dropbox. Don't let your cursor go anywhere below that. There's no reason for you to be down here now. Remember, you are in the AAPSL, not the AAPSL, and that way you will get it in the right place, okay? Dr. Revis, I'm going to go ahead and pull up. I'm going to pull up task. Let me minimize that. Let me pull up the template. Or the helpful hints. We'll go with the helpful hints. And
Before we leave that, Shri is asking, when is that Zoom link due to be uploaded? It's at the end of week 5, Sunday, February 13th.
not this Sunday night, but next Sunday night. Okay, not this coming Sunday night. We're telling you now because it gives you time to, to plan toward. You don't need to do it. You got too much to do probably through this week. You need to plan it by the weekend, or I would plan it the weekend if it were me. That's left up to you. I would plan it. Or possibly after we get through with you on Thursday night, while you're already there. Somebody could say, okay, let's go ahead and do it while we're in the mode, and do it Thursday night after we get through with you. That's left up to you. We're going to introduce task 3 of remember, at this point, everything dealing with task 1 should be cleared. Everything with task 2, we should have gotten your peer reviews by this afternoon. If you haven't, you need to get them in. And I've had some I have some that are cleared with task 2. They've got their final grade, Dr. Revis.
Wow.
So they're working on task 3 already. So the task 3, and Dr. Revis, I think we need to talk about it. If you're okay with this, let's talk about it, and then let me go back and let you pull up the difference between the annotated bibliography and the big. Let's do that after we get through talking. But again, make sure that you read the description and instructions carefully. Now, this is after by Sunday at the latest. Remember, you'll be through with task 2. You have identified what your most pressing need is. You know what you're working with now. Okay, let's look at it this way. You haven't been feeling well, and you go to the doctor and you say, "Doctor, I don't feel good." Doctor says, "Well, tell me what's going on." And you start telling the doctor, "Well, this and this and this and this and this." You tell them lots of things. Well, the doctor can't automatically, most of the time, say, well, the doctor has to figure out, what the sickness is. You've kind of figured out what the sickness is. We'll call that the most pressing need is the sickness. Now, guess what you're doing now? You're sick. The doctor, you say, "Doctor, I need medicine to get well." You're working now to figure out how you're going to heal the problem, the sickness. We'll call the most pressing need your sickness. So that's kind of where we are. Once you have completed tasks 1 and 2, successfully presented to the principal and your leadership team, you can move forward with task 3, and we'll tell you that. Once you get through with submit task 2, we're going to say, congratulations, move on to task 3. Your focus in prompt 1 will be the identified need in task 2. Listen again. You've just finished task 2. You've said this is our biggest need, our most pressing need. Your focus in prompt 1 is going to be all about that need that you identified in prompt 2. Now, this is what you're going to do. Maybe not necessarily in this order, and Dr. Revis will talk about that. You're going to create an annotated bibliography that is going to feature, that's featured in the narrative to evidence and illustrate resources, stuff for best practices in the identified needed area. These are things that, based on what the research says, could possibly help solve our problem or help make it better. Including a section that features online tools to support the teacher and student. Now, I guarantee you, all of you have some type of program in your school, Edgenuity. Help me, Dr.
Already,
iReady,
already.
the reading program,
We have Mastery Connect.
Mastery Connection. Somebody say another one.
M-Class.
M-Class, say another one.
Dreambox.
Greenbox, and then some of the older ones, Accelerated Reader, Plato, Study Island. All, you get the point. There's lots of stuff out there. Okay. Now, if you've been using something, that doesn't mean it's bad. But if you've got a lot of problems, that means that it's not fixing your problem. And it doesn't mean that you can't continue using that. But if it's not fixing your problem, if that medicine's not working, guess what? You got to find another medicine. And that's what you're going to do. So you're going to look at, what's out there. What does the research say about best practices? The stuff that the cutting edge stuff that's out there that's going to help solve my identified problem in task 2. So that's where you are. This is what you're going to do. Now look what I've got in green. You must include a minimum of 5 regular resources. That's 5 best practices, stuff out there. That could be lots of stuff. What's out there? What does the research say? Not what Cerise thinks, not what Alicia thinks, not what Dr. Revis thinks. What does the research say? What are some best practices out there to possibly help with my problem that I've identified in task 2? That's 5 at a minimum. And at a minimum, you must identify 3 online resources that you are not currently using. Okay? The online resources are to be technology research based. And again, we've talked about these examples. Dr. Revis, did I miss anything on that part?
Well, in prompt 1, you are doing the research. That's not your PLC. That's you. Excuse me. So if my issue is K2 literacy, and you've really dug down and decided it's reading comprehension, then I'm going to go to my library, Gardner Webb Library, and I'm going to try to research best practices and online resources to address reading comprehension in, early elementary school. You do the research, not your PLC. And then you want to go on to part B?
Go on to part B, yeah.
And then in part B is where you do a mini research section. Now we're going to show you an example of the difference in the two. The mini research section, do you remember in prompt 1, one of the first things you had to do was a mini research section on PLCs? Remember that? That's what this looks like. So you're going to do a mini research section on your most pressing need. Going back to my example, if it's reading comprehension, I've got to have some information, 3 to 5 paragraphs with 3 references, a minimum of 3, on reading comprehension. In general, what does the research say are some of the root causes of reading comprehension, or root causes for students not being able to be proficient in reading comprehension? So let's just look at that example down there, Dr. Stedman. This individual decided, once again, and I like this, guys, in your narrative, I like for you to restate in this prompt what your area of need is right up front. It helps us when we're looking at it, and it also will help your evaluator, because remember, you're going to put this big thing together and they get lost in it. So start out by talking again, reiterating what your most pressing need is. This person started with a literature review. So let's look at that.
And if you put your little review first or your annotated bibliography first, we
Yeah.
don't care. It's whatever you decide you end up wanting to do.
And so this person starts out, it's a narrative, right? Very quickly, I see one reference or one source there in that first paragraph. And goes on in talks about debate over mathematical computation, I believe is what this one is. And you see a couple of resources there. And then continued there and a couple more, one more resource there. Okay, it's all in narrative form. You are talking about your most pressing need. And then this part is the annotated bibliography. Now I want you to look first and foremost. You have to do a complete citation for an annotated bibliography. And I see an error in this person's citation. She should not have capitalized learning in the title of that article.
Exactly, right there. We didn't catch that either.
I didn't catch that. So you do your citation just like you were putting it in your reference section, hanging indent. But
Well,
look,
even here, Dr. Revis, social emotional learning,
yeah,
we capitalized.
yeah.
We'll have to go back and
So
fix that.
what she's doing here in an annotated bibliography is you're being very specific and you're summarizing and synthesizing information from your source. Okay.
Okay, and then you do it APA style, based on ABC order. Hanging
Your
in,
authors are listed in alphabetical order.
and a hanging indent, right, Dr. Revis?
Yes. And these are her 5, what we call regular resources, or non-technology based resources, I guess would be the better
Right.
descriptor.
And where you say where they are, it could be a book, it could be a journal article. I mean, it's unlimited. You could find a website, but make sure that it's a reputable website if you do that.
But I think to start out with, if you remember Dr. Natalie Bishop when she did her library session, go back and review. If you don't remember how she did those searches, remember we've got that uploaded.
No, we don't
guess
yet.
it-
We don't
we
have it yet.
don't?
She has not gotten it to us. They've had some problems there. I've got to
Okay.
send her another message. Dr. Lamb has spoken with her as well, and she has not been able to get it to me. So I apologize.
I wonder if we've got one from last semester we could
I
post.
I think so, and it'll be just as good. So I'll
Yeah,
we'll look
it'll be
for
the
that.
same thing. We'll do that, and that way you can go back and because remember, she talks about 2 major databases that you can go to.
Right. Mhm.
All right, now we're still in the annotated bibliography section. So those were the 5 non-digital resources or best practices. And then these are the 3 digital tools or resources. Amplify Education is the
And notice
first
what
one.
she said, this online resource called Amplify, and then to go into talking about it.
Mhm. And you need to make sure when you're looking at Amplify that you're making that connection to your most pressing need.
Do you mind if
And
I
there's your
ask that
second.
question?
Go ahead.
So what if you are using a resource that has an online component and a hands-on component?
Then you can list it as a regular resource and explain that, and you could use it as an online resource if that component is there as well. Alicia, is that what you're asking?
Yes. So
Uh,
yeah, I have a
you would-
I have a
you-
resource.
You would put it in 2 different places though.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, that would be okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Dr. Revis, you,
Yes, and then here's the last resource.
okay.
Well, I told a lie. Right here's your last resource, Voyager. I
Well,
think she actually did an extra
some
one.
people did more than 3.
Yeah. So again, you're doing the research in prompt 1. You are doing the research, you're doing the writing. It's all you in prompt 1. Prompt 2 is where you bring in your PLC. And this is where you share all that research with your PLC.
And remember, everything you do with your 5 regular resources, your 3 online resources, and your review, your research. Remember, everything points right back to that identified problem in task 2. Everything has to the arrow points directly to that problem, because you're trying to you're narrowing the search to try to find a solution. That's what you're doing. Okay. Now we're in task 3, prompt 2. There's 2 prompts. This is the second thing that you've got to do. Please note in the prompt directives that the candidate is responsible for detailing how the PLC created and used. Now, notice what I've got in green right here. Multiple, that means how many? More than 2. So that means at least what? At least 3 to be multiple, okay? Graphic organizers and visuals such as charts, graphs, tables, timelines, etc. They are to be where you've got to have narrative work in there to talk about whatever you put there. We have to understand what it is, and then we have to see how it relates back to what you did in prompt 1. You've got to relate it. Now think about this. Alicia, those online resources that you were talking about, you said that it could be a regular resource, but embedded in that program, when you do your research, guess what? When you start digging into it, if you do have Study Island, or if you have any of if you go into the program, it's already created all kinds of charts, graphs, tables, information that are researched and evidence-based already. So you can't put everything in there, but as you are looking at your resources, you begin narrowing your focus. You can say, okay, these are my 3 online resources, but you know what? I'm already, or the team's already, you'll start moving in a particular direction. Well, my suggestion would be that you take the one that you think you might be interested in the most. And Dr. Revis, wouldn't you say that that's where you would start focusing your attention there on pulling that visual information so you can better understand what it is? Now, you may want to do a couple of them that way that really stands out. And this is, you talk about it here and you show us. Dr. Revis?
Yes, and what I have seen most candidates do is they're really focusing on some of these online tools and those charts and graphs. But even some of your research-based strategies may have some graphs and charts and tables that you could use that shows maybe how effective the program is in addressing reading comprehension, or in addressing second language learners, or addressing exceptional children's learners. Does that make sense?
And just remember, at some point, when you get to task 4, you're going to have to use this information to present to your administration, whatever you're deciding that you're going to use. So guess what? You can't just go in there and say, well, we want to get Study Island. Why do you want to get Study Island? You need to be able to professionally say, we have researched this evidence-based program, and this is why we feel like that if we implemented this program, we could better address our most pressing need, whatever that is. You've got to be able to sell it. You're a salesperson to your administration and to your leadership team as to what it is that you want to use. Okay, Jonathan, you had your hand raised.
Thank you. You all answered that question. That was my question. Was like,
Okay.
This is the data that shows their effectiveness. Absolutely.
Right. So you've got to be able to walk the walk. You've got to be able to talk the talk. This is kind of where the rubber meets the road right here. Now you
Dr.
can't
Studman,
go
now
ahead.
you said that we couldn't use programs and stuff we're already implementing, correct?
No. Now the only exception to that, Sasha, is if there is another level of that program that you are not using.
So my
But if
next
you're-
question, I know you said we have to be salesmen. What if funding comes into play?
Well, that is
Because I know we're like maxed out. I know we can't have any more programs based on conversation. So
okay.
yeah.
And you've got to look at that now. You may want to look at something that would be reasonable if funding did become available, because you never know when new federal dollars are going to come down, and and you have to spend them pretty quickly. So it's okay to say, if we got the money, could we consider this? Or in your planning budget for the 2002-2003 school year, could we consider beginning an implementation? It could be phase 1 implementation once you do the research. It's okay to talk about something that could be.
And I've even seen some candidates and some schools at this point of the school year, they will talk about for next school year, instead of using funding for this program, which has not been effective in addressing that need, we're going to channel it to this program. So it may not be something you can start right now, maybe even next year. And we're going to show you an example. I think this person had that very thing happen here.
Right. And Sasha and all of you, this is that you've got to remember this. While we want everything that you present, while we want your administration to love it better than sliced bread, it may not happen in a lot of cases, but we want you to know and understand the true process, and we want you to be able to present the real facts and the real stuff that's out there. And then guess what? You've learned, and it's out of your hands then. There's nothing it's not in your control then. But what we want you to remember is, when you become the administrator, you have the skill base and you know what to do, and you know how. When you're in charge, you can say, well, they may not let me do it, but guess what I'm going to do when I'm in charge? I'm going to make it happen. So, if all else fails, just remember, you're building your foundation for when you become the one in charge, and you can help lead and make those decisions. Does that make sense? Okay, Dr. Revis?
Okay, so let's look at the example that we've got here.
And just
In
remember,
prompt
you're
2,
going to have a reference and an appendices as well, so don't forget that.
in prompt 2, you are presenting your information and your research to your PLC. And what you're doing is the PLC and you together, you're leading them through kind of deciding which tools or research-based practices that you're going to propose to use that best address the need of your school. So you can talk, here you see, after presenting my PLC what the literature states, I introduced the online resources. We discussed the importance of comparing the resources in order to make a best informed choice about which one may support our most pressing need. And so this person delegated a couple members of her team to research Amplify and Transmath. Okay, after she had already researched it. This is a figure that shows, let's see if it has their note under the figure, Dr. Stedman.
The
My
cycle.
screen's not showing.
Okay.
She didn't put a note as to what that was. So
The cycle
know,
for mathematical literacy, including
Yeah.
concepts, knowledge, and skills.
so their issue was mathematical literacy. And so you can see they pulled this graphic organizer. Some of the research that she had done shows that this is the cycle.
Grade level
She's
gains made within a school year and 2-month gain using Ascend Math. See, she's basically visually telling the story, and you're supporting your case for possibly wanting something. You're building your case for it. This is the
And she
beginning of the
didn't
year,
create-
end of the year. Yeah, go ahead.
And she didn't create these. She's pulled these
Right.
from websites
Right.
and for
You
publications.
don't have to create them if it's there, because these websites, they want to sell the program, so they've got to prove that they are research and evidence-based programs, that they truly have worked somewhere already. They've been tried and tested. And then she just continues to go on and on and on with, examples or graphics of programs that she's talked about.
If you will scroll back up to that table right there, this is
Right
where,
here?
no, the chart, figure 11. This is where she talks about the PLC team decided they wanted to do a comparison chart of the different programs. So this is where they looked at the 3 different programs and talked about price, the positives and the negatives from each of the programs. And this is what helped them come to a consensus for the program they're going to recommend. I like this. And I encourage you
I
to
do
think
too.
about doing this toward the end, right before you get to where you're talking about what best practices and what programs you're gonna go with or recommend to your principal.
And Sasha, I promise you this, you never, ever know, and I know this as a principal, you never know when money's going to come along, and you've got to have a quick turnaround. And especially with the monies that are out there now, there may be opportunities that you're not. ESSER 3 funds have come out, and so ESSER 3 funds have a longer life cycle. Now, I think we've got up until 2025, because even with me being in the nonprofit sector, I apply for those funds as well. I have a charter school, so I apply for those for my charter school, and my life cycle on that money goes up to 2025. So you see, you've got 3 years. Well, some of it's going up to 2026 now. So most of it, you have about 36 months to work with. And, that's a good start, because guess what? By the end of that, if it's working, other monies are going to come along that will help you to be able to move forward. But it's just being able to get it started the first time. So, Dr. Revis, you want me to go ahead and pull?
Yeah, and then I think she just ends by describing this process that they went through and what they're going to present to their principal.
Let me minimize that, and let me go back to. Do you have your PowerPoint for the do we need to pull that up, or do you think we've said enough about that?
Does everybody understand the difference between an annotated bibliography and a literature review, a mini literature review?
Does anybody need for us to go any further with that?
Because I think it's either in week 3 or 4, we have a comparison of the two. Remember,
Let me show them something. Go ahead and let me show them something.
remember
See if I
your
can find
literature
it.
review is written narratively in paragraph form, just like you did your PLC research. The annotated bibliography takes one resource at a time, describes that resource, moves on to a different one. And you arrange those alphabetical order by authors in your paper.
If you need something else, go to under week 4, go to annotated bibliography versus literature review presentation, and you can look at that, and that'll give you, if you need something more. We've talked about this already, but that will help you if you are still struggling with anything. That will help you understand that a little bit better. Okay. Now I want to do one more thing. Right here. Remember, we told you that in Blackboard that this is the task that is due this week. AAPSL Task 2. In order to be considered proficient, look what you've got to do. You've got to describe the data collection strategies and criteria in the process of identifying the most pressing academic need, and the data is graphically represented in the narrative in the form of charts, tables. We've talked about all of that, and the candidate will provide evidence that he or she can effectively lead. You've got to show your leadership there, and the evidence demonstrates academic needs assessment and strong PLC leadership that exceeds a proficiency rating. So they're looking for that extra stuff in there, and part of that comes where we are requiring you to do the presentation to your administration and that proof in there. So that extra is coming in with that as well right there. Now, let's look at, as you are moving into task 3, you need to go ahead and as you're beginning task 3, you've got to know what's expected of me. This is what's expected to be considered accomplished. The annotated bibliography and online tools demonstrates knowledge of best instructional practices associated with the identified needs. That's what we've said. And you have utilized data to specify needs and provides evidence that research-based strategies will be used to address those needs. Again, remember, your focus is back to task 2, that identified need. And guess what? The narrative features references to sources from the research and multiple graphic organizers to illustrate and help detail the PLC's projected impact on that identified need. And finally, the candidate's evidence exceeds established expectations for a proficiency rating for this task. So they're looking for, the evaluator is going to be looking for, what extra has this candidate done to help with trying to begin finding solutions for that identified problem. Okay. Okay. I'm tired. I can't say anything else right now. What else can we say to help you tonight?
I had just wanted some clarification on
Okay,
what exactly was expected to be turned in this Sunday.
Okay.
Because I'm just looking at.
Let me
go
go
ahead.
back.
You can answer that part. And I got one more question after that. Go ahead.
Go ahead and ask the question while I go back and share my screen. I'm going to pull something up. Go ahead,
Okay.
Jonathan.
Now I'm thinking of the word problems may be something that I want to address as a my most pressing need, possibly just looking at the data. But the resources that you're talking about that are not online resources, I'm not real clear. I know you said journals, I'm not sure how websites wouldn't fall into the online technology and books, but are we talking about strategies that the teachers could use in place or a program in place in the classroom, such as, I know you're not talking about like a test taking strategy. That's not what you're talking about, are you?
Right.
Or like cubes.
Go ahead, Dr. Revis.
Right. If I were I'm going back to my reading comprehension problem. When I do my research and my literature review about root causes of poor reading comprehension, I'm going to find in my research that if children struggle, or if children are not fluent readers, that is going to negatively impact their reading comprehension, right? We know that. I'm also going to find out that if schools don't have a strong phonics program, that's going to impede fluency, hence reading comprehension. And I'm probably also going to find out that if we don't have a good strategies in the classroom for teaching about new vocabulary, that's also going to cause reading comprehension problems. All of that I'm going to find in the library when I do a search on root causes of poor reading comprehension. All right. I've got to understand what causes this. Then once I do that, I talked about vocabulary. Then I'm going to start looking at research around what best practices or what programs or what online tools has proven to support vocabulary development. I might even get into phonics. I'm going to look there. What phonics programs, strategies, best practices. See what I'm saying? Then I'll get into fluency development. I'm going to get into a lot of my other programs and best practices. And you do all that work from your searches from your Gardner Webb library.
Okay, this is I will use this as an example. This is a book that I recently purchased from anyway, it's and we'll talk about this more when we do the AAPSL, but it's Formative Classroom Walkthroughs, How Principals and Teachers Collaborate to Raise Student Achievement. You might find a book, a best practice bestseller that's out there. And there's people, DeFore is gone now, but I'm just saying it may be somebody that is the best, you may want to suggest that everybody has a copy of a certain book, and that you actually begin, and we'll talk about this with the AAPSL too, where you could actually begin doing staff development towards an identified need. But I'm just saying a single book can be a regular resource. If you find something out there that's got, there's books out there, if it's on your literacy problems, there's so much out there on literacy now. You might find, one of your 5 regular resources could be an excellent reference book that teachers could have on hand that they could refer to as they're looking for strategies to use to work with. Many years ago, and some of you won't remember this because Dr. Revis will, but I'm pulling from my library stuff right here, Dr. Revis, because I don't get rid of stuff. But everybody, you do your behavior. You remember the Canner model for behavior, Dr. Revis, when Lee Canner, and then remember with our exceptional children, remember the PRIM manual. Well, we had these PRIM manuals and we gave them to every teacher because regular classroom teachers had to mainstream our exceptional children And they had to know how to, so guess what? If you're working with, if your EC children, if a subgroup of them is your identified problem, and these prim manuals on the teacher's desk, that could be that's a research evidence-based tool that could be used to help teachers to refer to that identified need and to find strategies that will help them better work with those students in the classroom. I'm just using that as an example. There's lots of stuff out there. And once you start digging and you do your research and your referencing, a lot of stuff is going to start showing up. And when you find one thing, if you look in the back, the references, it leads to other things. So.
Thank you. That I just wanted some. I didn't realize that we can use the teacher development as a part of a resource too. That makes more sense now.
Okay, good. And I know I said a lot, but I wanted to make sure that everybody understood that there's lots of avenues. There's lots of, and you know, if I'm on Interstate 95 and I live right beside that interstate, and I want to go to Fayetteville and it's blocked, Interstate 95 would take me straight to Fayetteville, North Carolina. But if there's a roadblock there, there's a lot of other side roads that I know that I can take. I can still get to Fayetteville. So, you know, it's not just 95. There's lots of avenues, ways to get there.
Okay, Dr. Stedman, we've got a few kind of, I think, freaking out, have already put in the chat box. All of this plus the PLC meeting is due by Sunday. And they're just now starting their research. Is there any way we could, and I see where they're coming from. Is there any way they could submit task 3, prompt 1 by Sunday and finish prompt 2 by Wednesday of next week? Would that work, or would that put us behind?
It will. I know
Okay.
they're freaking out. Let's see where you are. This is the hardest of all the weeks with the work. And I will tell you that. It's the more, but it's so monumental to the rest of what you do. Take a deep breath. You're gonna have to once you get into it, it's not going to be as difficult. It is time consuming, but it's not going to be as difficult as you think it is once you get into it. Again, most of you have already finished up with the other. You need to go ahead and get task 2 cleared and get it to us so that's out of your mind. And most of you can go ahead and do that. You should be able to get it out of your mind, and this is all you've got to think about.
Dr. Stedman, may I quickly ask a question?
Sure.
Just to recap all of this, because this is a lot of information. So we're looking at 1 annotated bibliography and minimum of 3 references supporting best practices.
Right.
Right, okay. And then in our narrative, we are to include 5 regular resources and 3 online, a minimum of 3 online resources.
That is your annotated bibliography. And then your research is 3 references.
And if you'll go back and look at this example, I think you'll see that you have to have 8 sources for annotated bibliography, 5 non-digital, and 3 online. And then your literature review have to have at least 3. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Guys, I know it's a lot.
And again,
I know it's a lot, but remember, you can have your PLC. You don't have to have this written up before you have your PLC meeting, but you do have to have the information.
and let me tell you something. This is one time, this task is more you and not your PLC. You need to do 99% of the work and present to your PLC and get their support and just take it to them and say, what do you think? You don't have time with the back and forth with them. The majority of task 3 is going to be you, your leadership, you. You're doing most of the work there.
Dr. Stedman,
Yes,
um, I looked at it, but I'm totally confused. Do we have to present this information to the PLC and then write about what they said? Because
no.
my PLC only meets Wednesdays. That's
Remember,
the only time my teachers are able.
remember what I just said. You can do this work and you can share with your PLC, but this is pretty much, this one's pretty much on you. Wouldn't you say so, Dr. Revis?
Yeah, you'll need to get their input when
Right,
you're comparing resources. In
Right.
fact, you could do this virtually, very easy, a
Mhm.
PLC virtually.
Would it, Dr. Stedman or Dr. Revis, would it be possible, because I'm meeting also tomorrow with my PLC and I have met weekly with them, but would it be possible if I send an email or an attachment showing because I don't know if I'll be able to get another meeting in because I'm not at that
Absolutely.
school. If so, I could say, hey, this is what I'm looking at and get their input back, just email me back. Would that be acceptable?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. That
Are
makes me
you
feel a
okay
little
with
bit
that,
better.
Dr. Revis, as well?
Oh,
I
yeah.
think- I think, and you've got to work with what you've got to work with, Jennifer. So yes, I understand that.
And one last question, probably everybody's doing this but me, because I was confused. When we submit task 3, do you want it just task 3, or do we want 1 and then 2 and then stick 3 under it, or just 3?
Just 3, and some people did do 1 and 2 together, and we prefer that you don't do that. It makes it
Okay.
so,
Yeah,
even for when you're doing peer reviews, it's harder for the people doing the peer reviews to, so we only want to look at 1 task at a time at this point.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Again, I know what you're thinking. Your mind's in overload. You've got to get off the ledge and just take a deep breath. I promise, Dr. Revis, how long have we been doing this? This is almost 10 years for me. And every time that we've presented this, we've had the same that people get excited or whatever. But guess what happens the next week? They turn it in and it's good work. You get it done.
I think you were right in that this is the toughest week.
It is. It is.
If you need us, if you are unclear, if you will follow the template and the example for each section, you cannot go wrong.
Okay. And look at this. Jonathan, you asked the question, this is in your, under week 4, this is posted in there. This is the agenda. Just remember, task 2 of the AAPSL is due to Blackboard for a final grade to include your presentation to administration no later than this Sunday. However, get this done and over with and go ahead and submit it and get it off your mind. Get it off your plate. Just get it done. Task 3 that we're sharing right now will be due, everything we've talked about, for an instructor review by Sunday night. And then you know about the peer reviews. You've got until next Tuesday to get those done. Zoom team peer review assignment is not until the next week. So you may not even want to focus on that until after you get this over with and just say, okay, we'll do this. You've got all next week to get that done. Okay.
In fact, Dr. Stedman, we don't have Thursday night class next week, correct?
They do not.
So that would be a good time. You're used to meeting on Thursdays. That would be a great time for you to do your Zoom meeting.
Yes. I thank you for thinking about that, Dr. Revis. I would highly recommend that you just go ahead and just say that I'm used to Thursday night anyway. Let's just go ahead and next Thursday night, let's just at 7 o'clock, let's do our Zoom meetings. That's what I would consider as for each team.
I have a question.
Sure.
So did we or did we not say we're giving an extension for a certain part of the task? Is it just the part where we present to the administrator that we're getting an extension on? Or
That
we're
was-
not getting an extension at
No,
all?
that was Chanel. That was for last week, task 2.
Oh, okay,
So you're not having to present task 3 to your administrator.
okay.
Task 3, you're just working with your PLC team now. You don't have to present task 3 to your administrator.
So when you were saying about explaining or sharing with him or her the tools that we found,
When
Is
you go
that
to
not-
task 4,
okay,
you're not there yet. You're going
Okay.
to take some of what you choose in task 3 to put in your plan for task 4. That's
Okay.
when you'll present it. When you make a
Okay.
decision what you're going to use based on all the work that you accumulate in task 3.
got it.
You're not
Okay.
at that place yet. Task 3 itself is not presented to your administration.
Got it.
That's your work and you getting input from whatever you can from your PLC, from your team. But the majority of it's going to be you. And you know what? I don't normally say this. You may want to, you know, and you know what you can and cannot do. I've told students before, because you may decide that you want to take a me day and just camp out by yourself somewhere without children, without family, without everything. Say, this is my day and I'm going to get my work done. I'm going to work this day and I'm going to knock it out. You're going to have to do some of that sometime. And this is probably a week that you might want to say, I need a me day to get my work done. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Tracy, did you have a question?
I did. My principal is part of my PLC. So how do I handle that with this section?
I don't know what you're asking, Tracy. You present it just like you would. They're just a member of the PLC and their input. They're just, at this point, they're just a member. So you're not presenting anything at this point. You're just, they're giving you're at an advantage because pretty much they're going to help lead to something that you can use anyway, hopefully.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I know you're thinking, I see it. You can do this. You've already proven you can do this. It's just a hard week. But all the weeks won't be like this. So.
Okay, Dr. Stedman, I think there are no more questions. I don't know whether they're in shock or disbelief or what.
You're going to be all right. Haven't I told you, and Dr. Revis told you from the very beginning, if you stuck with us, you'd be all right?
It's just that it's a lot of work at work, with the pandemic and all the.
And Sri, and we understand that.
Yeah.
But thank you for even smiling when you said that, Sri. I appreciate that.
Yeah, 100%. So we'll go at this, with full heart and effort, and then we'll see where it takes us.
You're going to do well. I promise you, you're going to do well. Give it everything you've got, figure it out, and I promise you, you're going to do much better than you can even think about right now.
Sounds good.
You are.
All righty. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening,
Okay.
and reach out to us if you have any questions.
And remember, we have our final session on Thursday with Dr. Lamb, and we've got some other stuff, and we'll touch a little bit on this as well on Thursday night, but that's our last Thursday night for a while. Okay.
Good
Bye,
night.
everybody.